Hey everyone, how's it going? It's been a minute. Welcome back to another video. Sorry about that. Sorry it's been so long. I just had a lot of stuff going on at work and in life, and really I tried to make this video specifically about maybe 10 different times, and all of them just weren't working out, and I just had a lot going on, and I was just like, screw it, I'm just gonna take a break. But you know, it was good to take a break. I feel kind of refreshed creatively and kind of back in the saddle. Still, I never stopped working on the comic, so that should have an update probably early next week. I was hoping to have it out earlier this month, but again, just too much was happening in the personal life, so just kind of had to put some of this stuff on the back burner, unfortunately. But like I said, back in the saddle, back making stuff. So like I said, I've tried to make this video maybe 5 different times, and I was going to go with a more technical video talking about, like primary, secondary, tertiary colors, saturation, vibrancy, and complementary colors, kind of the whole 9 yards, more of the basics, I guess, of color. I would say more beginner focused. And this video is kind of beginner focused too, but in a different way. It's not really like as, focused on the fundamentals as maybe that other video would be. This is more on like feeling color and more on like vibes, but we'll get into that more later in the video. And this video is kind of off of a request one of you made in the comments, I think a couple videos ago. But I'm not a super technical artist, so I'm going to kind of teach color here in my own way, and hopefully you get something out of it. So first off, there are 2 ways you can level up your color work almost instantly, or really 3 ways. First off is start doing traditional art if you aren't already. If you're a digital artist, maybe do this for like a month, like do traditional art for like a month to 3 months or so. I know that sounds like a long time, but color is one of those things that is really ambiguous or amorphous in art. You can kind of crack the proverbial egg of color in a lot of different ways. I mean, just look at all the artwork online. It all is colored differently and it all looks different, to a certain extent. So dedicating time to experiencing color and figuring it out for yourself and how you like to do it is really important, as with all aspects of art. I say to start off traditionally because it provides you natural limitations to seeing how color actually functions in the real world. When you work digitally, you literally have all the colors in the universe basically that we can see as humans at your disposal, which may not be scientifically correct, but it feels like it. So, and basically that can be overwhelming. Like if you open up the color wheel or the color block in Procreate or Photoshop, it's like you have so many options, so many tones of color. Like you pick one color and you have almost like thousands or maybe even hundreds of thousands of combinations of just that one color in terms of the tone you can use with it. So working traditionally teaches you how to build a palette, and more importantly, how colors harmonize and actually work together and how they mix and all that kind of stuff. Like for example, if you overlay, red and blue together, they make purple, that whole thing. Also, colors, while broadly, they function the same, do harmonize differently medium to medium, at least slightly. So for example, when you're working with watercolor, the colors are going to kind of flow together a little bit differently than they would with like oil paint or even like marker, that kind of a thing, just because the saturation is different and the tones are different naturally in those mediums, and you kind of have to work into those different levels of saturation and tone a bit differently. So I said, harmonize color. What do I mean by that? What do I mean by harmonize or color harmony? I mean when colors interact, like what feels good or what feels right. We all have artistic tastes. But what I would say is that color almost has its own taste within the broader scope of art. For us who draw or paint, it's the equivalent to how a musician would string chords together in a song. So you kind of need to find out how you like to do this, like I said earlier, and how you like to harmonize. There is a general guideline, and I'll get into that later in the video. Another way to improve your color work, especially if you are a digital artist, and maybe even if you don't have access to traditional media, is to make color palettes. A good way to start off making palettes is to look at scenes in movies, live action, animation, it doesn't really matter. Pick maybe 3 to 7 colors and only work with those colors. Even for my webcomic, I have dedicated color palettes that I work within, especially for the characters, and palettes for the environments that the characters are going through. The way I'm coloring my comic, for example, color-wise, is I think a little bit too complex for where my taste is going, like my taste is developing. I'm really just sticking with it because at this point that's the comic style and the look of it. So changing it now would really make things look different. Probably, I don't know what I'm drawing for this video yet, but the color you're seeing in this video is a little bit more in the direction of the color process I'd like to go in, just a little bit more simplistic. But okay, so you have color palettes and you have working traditionally as your first two things that can help you move in this better coloring direction. So now I'm going to talk a bit about how I think about color when I'm actually coloring. When I'm choosing colors is I ask myself the question, is a scene that I'm illustrating warm or cool tone dominant? Warm colors are your reds, oranges, yellows. Cool tones are your blues, greens, and purples, and all the colors in between on those different spectrums. Warm colors generally promote energy and life, while cool colors generally promote the opposite. So like more chill, more dead, even calm. So for example, if we look at this Dragon Attack piece I did a while ago, next to the Orc in a Snowstorm piece, you can clearly see these images just from the color give off a different feeling, right? Another example are these comic pages. You can see Zemo and Crystal are in an open field here. They're fighting this wyvern, but nothing is really wrong. They're moving, they're being successful. It's bright, it's a bit more saturated and colorful. Immediately though, maybe a page or two later, they arrive at this city, the old colonies, and the colors immediately are cool color dominant or cool tone dominant, denoting this place is empty or abandoned. It even starts to rain later, and I think in this page, which while not necessarily color, really hammers the point home that this place is not good, or something is wrong or off, or it's just like empty and creepy. The second thing I really focus on in my work is complementary colors, so colors that make the other color pop. So for example, it's an easy example I thought of off the top of my head is if we look at Crystal. Her color palette is primarily cool tone dominant, except for her skin and especially her red-orange hair. The biggest color on her body though, especially from behind, is her purple cape. Orange and purple are complementary, or really yellow and purple, but orange is close enough. So immediately when you see her, she looks interesting, right? It gives visual interest. The more you have these complementary colors together, it will make it more interesting. It'll make your piece look more interesting. But you can overload this, right? I would highly suggest you pick the spot in a composition where you want those complementary colors to be, because it'll naturally draw the eye. Or you can really offset the background, like if you want to make the background purple, for example, and the foreground orange, like where the characters are, it'll really separate those things out. It'll do things like that. It can kind of make your work look more detailed and visually interesting than it is, right? Because you don't want to necessarily be overly detailed, because it can just look like a mess and visual clutter. But you also don't want to be under detailed, right? And you kind of want to find the happy medium for you. Color is really powerful and you can feel it, and this is the third and final thing I'm going to go into here, or I guess maybe fourth at this point. I don't really know, I lost track. But I really feel my color out. I don't really ever look at the color wheel at this point. And to be honest, I don't think I really ever have, other than maybe like art class in high school 15 years ago. I will maybe once in a blue moon look at it if I'm just drawing something random and trying to figure out a palette to go off of. But mostly I go off of this warm, cool tone, color spectrum feel thing. So I challenge you to kind of start to try and feel your colors more, especially if you're more of a technical artist than I am. Don't be so technical, right? And maybe I should be a bit more technical. But technique is important, obviously, and the fundamentals are very important. But more important than all of that is how an artwork makes you feel. So, use the fundamentals to help make people feel things and help make yourself feel things. But do away with them if you don't need it, right? And that's kind of like getting more into what I talk about typically with like artistic flow and kind of finding your own way. Don't get so wrapped up in those fundamentals, because you really can and really think there's a right and wrong way to do things, but suddenly you'll find out, like I'm talking about this warm cool tone thing, but some people make their images entirely blue and it still works, you know what I mean? So there's no really right way. It's just you just need all the pieces of your style to flow together in a comprehensive way, in a cohesive way, and it'll work out, right? I think Marco Bucci made a color video a long time ago where he basically like color blinded himself and just picked a bunch of random colors, and as long as your tones and values are good, it still works, right? So just do what feels right, I guess is the moral of this little video. But yeah, hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, all that good stuff. As usual, if you have anything else you want me to make a video on, feel free to let me know as well. And as usual as well, there's a link in the description to my webcomic if you want to check it out. I am almost done with chapter 2/issue 2 of 3. So it's exciting. I'm over halfway there. I'm hoping to finish it up in the summer. Fingers crossed. But yeah, go read it. And thanks for watching. And I'll see you when I see you. Actually, I'll probably see you this weekend / early next week with the comic video. And then after that, I'll see you when I see you. Okay, bye.